Carter thinks he just kicked a broke housewife and our son out into a blizzard to make room for his mistress. He has no clue that the woman shivering on his porch is actually the secret heiress to a $2.3 billion empire. He gave me 24 hours to disappear, but I am going to use that time to buy his company and burn his entire life to the ground. My name is Eleanor, but in this cramped, drafty house in the suburbs of Chicago, I was treated less like a wife and more like an unwanted appliance. I stood over the stove, basting a turkey that cost nearly a week of my grocery budget, trying to ignore the ache in my lower back. The smell of rosemary and sage filled the kitchen, a festive scent that felt like a lie compared to the tension radiating from the living room. Carter was sprawled on the recliner, the blue light of the television flickering across his face as he stared at the thermostat on the wall with pure disdain. Ellie, why is the heat set to 68? Do you think I'm made of money? Turn it down to 65. I swear, you have no concept of what it takes to earn $1 in this economy. I wiped my hands on my apron and did as he asked, lowering the temperature. He had no idea. Carter Thorne did not know that the woman he was berating for a few dollars in heating costs was actually the sole heiress to the Sterling Vance empire, a fortune worth over $2.3 billion. 7 years ago, I had walked away from the penthouses and the private jets because I wanted something money could not buy. I wanted true love. I wanted a man who loved Eleanor the person, not Eleanor the bank account. So I became Ellie the preschool teacher. I let him feel like the provider. I dimmed my light so he could shine, and I convinced myself that his controlling nature was just stress from his job as a mid-level manager at Omnicorp Logistics. You're just always in the way, Carter muttered as I walked past him to tidy the coffee table. Look at you, sweatpants and flour on your face. You know, Veronica at the office. She's always sharp. She wears these tight skirts and high heels. She knows how to present herself. You look like a peasant from the sticks. Before I could respond, the sound of small running feet thumped against the hardwood. Leo, my sweet boy who had just turned 5 years old, burst into the room holding a piece of construction paper. His eyes were bright with the magic of Christmas Eve. Daddy. Look, I drew you. See, it's you and me building a snowman. Carter did not even look at the drawing. He swatted the paper out of Leo's hand, sending it fluttering to the floor. Get that. Trash out of my face, I am trying to watch the news. Why is he always so loud? God, Ellie, can't you keep him quiet for 5 minutes? It is like living in a zoo. Leo's lip trembled, and he shrank back, terrified by the sudden outburst. I rushed over and scooped my son up, burying his face in my shoulder to muffle his quiet sobs. Anger flared in my chest, hot and sharp. As I glared at Carter, my eyes caught the glint of gold on his wrist. It was a Rolex Submariner, a watch that cost $10,000. Just yesterday, he had told me we could not afford a new winter coat for Leo because money was too tight. Under a magazine on the table, I saw the corner of a box for Chanel No. 5. I do not wear Chanel. Carter, I said, my voice shaking slightly as I tried to keep the peace for Leo's sake. Please, it's Christmas Eve. Maybe you just need some space. I can take Leo to the back room and we can space. Yeah, I need space. Carter interrupted, not taking his eyes off the television. I was thinking you should take him to your mother's house. You know, back to that. Dump in the country where you people belong. On the screen, the weatherman was gesturing frantically at a map covered in white. We are tracking a historic system. Snowmageddon is hitting Chicago in less than 2 hours. Authorities are advising zero travel. I repeat, do not go out. Temperatures will drop to 20 below zero with wind chill. The doorbell rang, sharp and jarring. Carter's demeanor changed instantly. The scowl vanished, replaced by a sickeningly eager grin. He practically leaped off the couch, smoothing his hair as he rushed to the door. Finally, he whispered. He threw the door open, letting a blast of freezing wind tear through the warm house. Standing there, wrapped in a white fox fur coat that looked brand new, was Veronica. She stepped inside, shaking snow from her blonde hair, and looked around my living room with a sneer of absolute superiority. Carter turned to face me, his arm snaking around Veronica's waist, pulling her close. He looked me dead in the eye, his expression void of any love or mercy. "Ellie, we need to talk. I'm done. I'm done with the boredom. I'm done with you dragging me down. Veronica and I are going to spend Christmas here. Just the two of us." He pointed a shaking finger at the open door, where the whiteout conditions were already visible. "You and the kid. You need to go. Now. I want you out of my house. Carter, please. Have a heart." I grabbed his arm, my fingers digging into his cashmere sweater, desperation clawing at my throat. The news said 0 visibility. "It is lethal out there. Leo is burning up. He has a fever of 101 degrees. If you throw us out now, you might as well put a gun to his head." Carter shook me off with a look of utter disgust, wiping his sleeve as if I were covered in filth. "That sounds like a you problem. Ellie, not a me problem. I told you. I am done pretending to care about your little dramas." Veronica leaned against the door frame, swirling a glass of wine she had already poured for herself. "Oh, honey, don't be so pathetic. It is embarrassing," she drawled, her voice dripping with venom. "Carter, baby, just get them out. This house is for people who actually matter. We don't need the help hanging around. Besides, this place is in your name. Right. So legally, she is just trespassing." The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Carter's name was on the deed only because I had secretly wired the down payment from an offshore trust fund, letting him believe he had earned a massive bonus. I had bought the roof over his head, and now he was using it to shelter his mistress. "You want to leave, fine. Let me help you pack," Carter sneered. He did not wait for a response. He grabbed the single suitcase I had by the door, the one I had packed for the visit to my mother's, and hurled it into the yard. It landed with a dull thud in a snowbank. Then, his eyes fell on Leo's toy truck, the one he had been playing with on the rug. Carter snatched it up. "And take this. Junk with you," he shouted, winding up and throwing the plastic truck deep into the swirling white abyss. "No, my truck," Leo shrieked, a sound of pure heartbreak that shattered the last remnant of my patience. "Get out," Carter roared. He shoved me backward, forcing me to stumble out onto the icy porch, dragging Leo with me. Before I could regain my balance, he slammed the heavy oak door. The sound of the deadbolt sliding into place echoed like a gunshot. "Daddy, please," Leo cried, pounding his tiny fists against the wood. I pulled my son away from the door, wrapping my thin coat around his trembling body. The wind howled around us, a physical force trying to knock us down. The temperature was already well below 0, the cold biting into my skin like 1,000 needles. But as I stared at the closed door, at the warm glow of the lights inside where my husband was likely toasting to his freedom, the shivering stopped. The tears froze on my cheeks, not from the cold, but because the source of them had dried up. The grief was gone. In its place was a cold, hard rage that felt familiar. It felt like power. "Come on, Leo," I said, my voice steady and low. "We are going for a ride," where he sobbed, his teeth chattering. "Away from here." We trudged through the knee-deep snow toward the bus stop at the end of the street. Every step was a battle against the wind, but with every step, Ellie, the submissive housewife, died a little more. By the time we reached the graffiti-covered shelter with its shattered glass panels, she was gone completely. Standing there, shielding my son from the biting gale, I reached into the lining of my purse and pulled out a clunky, old-fashioned phone. It looked like a piece of junk, but it was military-grade hardware. I popped the back open, removed the standard SIM card I had used for 7 years to play the part of a poor teacher, and snapped it in half. From a hidden compartment in the battery case, I slid out a black satellite SIM card with gold plating. I powered it on. It connected instantly, bypassing the local cell towers that were failing in the storm. I dialed a number I had not called since the day I ran away. Vance residence. Alfred speaking. A crisp, familiar voice answered after a single ring. "Alfred," I said, and my voice was no longer the soft whisper of a downtrodden wife. It was the voice that commanded boardrooms. "Activate." Protocol Phoenix. There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Miss Eleanor, is that?" "Truly you it is. I am at the corner of Oak and 4th in Chicago. Come get me. And Alfred, come get your grandson immediately." I looked back toward the house that was no longer my home. And one more thing. "Get the legal team on the line. I want to buy Omnicorp Logistics. Not tomorrow. Tonight. Understood. Madame, we are deploying immediately." We stood in the freezing dark for exactly 15 minutes. Then, the darkness was shattered. Twin beams of blinding white light cut through the blizzard like lasers. A massive, black, armored limousine, flanked by 2 heavy SUVs, tore down the quiet suburban street, smashing through snowdrifts as if they were nothing. The convoy screeched to a halt in front of the bus stop. 4 men in black tactical gear jumped out, forming a protective wall around us. The rear door of the limo flew open, and warm, golden light spilled out onto the snow, illuminating the shocked faces of the few neighbors peering through their curtains. I lifted Leo into the car, and as I climbed in after him, I did not look back. The storm was raging outside, but for Carter Thorne, the real storm was just beginning. The transition from the freezing slush of the suburbs to the 65th floor of the Vance Plaza Hotel was instantaneous and absolute. The private elevator doors slid open silently, revealing the sprawling penthouse suite that had been waiting for my return for 7 long years. The air here didn't smell of stale grease and anxiety. It smelled of white tea and money. While the blizzard raged against the floor-to-ceiling windows, inside was a sanctuary of warmth and unyielding power. "Get him warm. Now," I commanded, gesturing to Leo. A team of 3 pediatric specialists who had been flown in via helicopter ahead of the storm immediately swarmed my son. They were gentle but efficient, checking his vitals and wrapping him in heated blankets made of Egyptian cotton. Seeing him safe, sipping hot cocoa brought by a butler, allowed the final knot of fear in my chest to unravel. Now, there was only room for business. I walked into the master dressing room, stripping off the cheap, fraying coat Carter had bought me from a discount bin 3 years ago. I let it drop to the floor like a shed skin. Waiting for me was a rack of clothes that actually fit the woman I was. Not the woman I had pretended to be. I selected a bespoke charcoal suit from Savile Row, tailored to perfection, with a silk blouse that cost more than Carter's car. As I buttoned the blazer, I felt the posture of Eleanor Vance returning spine steel straight, chin high. "Mr. Blackwood is waiting in the study." "Madam," Alfred announced, handing me a glass of vintage sparkling water. I strode into the study, where Arthur Blackwood, the most feared corporate litigator in America, stood up from the mahogany desk. He didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me with readiness. "Eleanor, it is good to have you back," Blackwood said, his voice gravelly. He slid a thin dossier across the desk. "We have pulled everything on Mr. Thorne." "It is as you suspected. The man is a financial shell." I flipped through the pages. It was pathetic. "He thinks he's a big shot," I murmured, scanning the credit card statements. "But look at this. The platinum card, the gold card, the auto loan. They are all linked to the shadow accounts I set up. I have been paying off his debts for years just to keep his fragile ego intact." "Shall we terminate the subsidies?" Blackwood asked, his pen hovering over a tablet. "Cut it all," I said, my voice cold. "Freeze every account linked to the trust. Decline every transaction. If he tries to buy a pack of gum, I want the card to be rejected. I want him to feel exactly how poor he really is." Alfred stepped forward with a tablet of his own, and regarding Omnicorp Logistics. "Madame, we have done the due diligence. Mr. Thorne is merely a mid-level logistics coordinator. The company itself is leveraged heavily. To us, actually. They owe Vance Capital $40 million in bridge loans. A hostile takeover isn't even necessary. You can simply call in the debt." "Do it," I said, "but keep my name off the press release until tomorrow morning. Let him walk into work thinking he owns the place." I turned to the wall of monitors I had ordered set up. One screen showed a live feed from the hidden cameras I had installed in the suburban house years ago for security. There they were. Carter and Veronica were sitting on my couch, drinking my wine, laughing. Carter was mimicking the way I used to beg for grocery money, and Veronica threw her head back, cackling. They looked so comfortable, so safe. "They are celebrating," I observed, watching Carter refill her glass. "They think they have won." I picked up a gold fountain pen and began to write a list on the notepad. Carter Thorne, Veronica Miller, Beatrice Thorne, Alfred, bring up the social media team. I ordered, not taking my eyes off the screen. "I want a strategic leak. We have the footage of him throwing Leo's things into the snow. I want that on every platform. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Frame it as, 'Heartless husband evicts child in blizzard.' Do not mention my identity yet. Just let the internet do what it does best. Destroy him." "And the mother?" Alfred asked, glancing at the name Beatrice Thorne on my list. "Her, too," I replied. "She has enabled him for years. If she wants to defend him, she can go down with him. Carter gave me 24 hours to leave his life. I am going to use those hours to strip him of everything: his job, his reputation, his house, and that woman he thinks is a prize. By this time tomorrow, Carter Thorne won't just be divorced. He will be erased." Back at the house, the scene was playing out exactly as I had orchestrated through the hidden camera feed on my tablet. I watched Carter raise a glass of wine to Veronica. The fire was roaring, and they were laughing, likely making fun of the way I used to coupon for groceries to save a few cents. Then, with a sudden, audible click, the house plunged into darkness. The hum of the furnace died instantly. The silence was heavy and immediate. "What the hell?" Carter's voice was loud in the sudden quiet. "The power must be out from the storm. Stay here, babe. I will check the breaker." He stumbled around, using his phone flashlight to navigate the hallway. The breakers were fine. I watched him dial the power company, putting it on speaker so he could keep his hands free while he checked the fuse box again. The automated voice on the other end was crisp and merciless. "Service for this address has been disconnected due to the withdrawal of the primary account guarantor, Eleanor Vance. To restore service, the outstanding balance of $400 must be paid immediately." Guarantor, what are they? What are talking about? Carter muttered, clearly confused. He did not even realize the bills had always been in my name, paid by my trust while he played pretend breadwinner. Stupid computer. Fine. I will just pay it. He pulled out the platinum card I had given him for emergencies, which he mostly used for golf clubs. He punched in the numbers. Transaction declined. This card has been reported lost or stolen by the account owner. What that is? Impossible. Carter shouted at the phone. He tried the gold card next. Declined. He tried his debit card. Insufficient funds. Veronica shivered, pulling her fur coat tighter around her shoulders. "Carter, it is freezing in here already. I am not staying in a dark, cold house on Christmas Eve. You said you were a manager. Fix this. Let's just go to a hotel. Take me to the Vance Plaza. My friends say the suite there is to die for." Yeah, of course," Carter stammered. trying to regain his composure. The lines are probably just down because of the blizzard. We will go to the plaza. I will put it on the company card. Omnicorp treats its executives right. I took a slow sip of my wine, a vintage Cabernet Sauvignon aged 100 years, as I watched them scramble out to his sports car. He was so confident. He drove through the blinding snow to the very hotel where I was sitting in the penthouse. Down in the lobby, the marble floors gleamed under the crystal chandeliers. Carter strode up to the reception desk, slapping his Omnicorp corporate card on the counter with a smug grin that made my stomach turn. Penthouse suite. The best you have. Put it on this. The receptionist, a young man who had been briefed by Alfred just 10 minutes prior, took the card. He swiped it. He frowned. I am sorry, sir. The clerk said politely, this card has been flagged. The code says, employee under active investigation for embezzlement. We cannot accept this form of payment. Carter's face went pale. That is ridiculous. There must be a mistake. Try it again. Do you know who I know exactly who you are. Sir, the clerk replied coolly. Do you have another form of payment? Carter tried his personal cards again. Declined. 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 Veronica stepped back, looking at him like he was a stranger. Carter, what is going on? Why are your cards not working? It is the storm, Carter lied, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cold air coming from the revolving doors. The banking servers must be down. The blizzard is messing with the signals. Look, baby, we just need to find a place that takes cash. I have a few hundred in my wallet. They ended up at the Starlight Motel, a run-down establishment on the outskirts of the city where the neon sign flickered ominously. The room had peeling wallpaper and smelled faintly of mildew and stale cigarettes. This is it, Veronica screeched, looking at the lumpy mattress with horror. You kicked your wife out for this, Carter. Are you sure you actually have money? I told you. It is the banks, Carter snapped, the stress finally cracking his smooth facade. Stop nagging me. We will sort it out in the morning when the storm clears. Up in the warm, scented air of the penthouse, a notification pinged on my screen. Transaction declined, Starlight Motel. $65. Insufficient funds. He had even less cash than he thought. I swirled the dark red liquid in my glass, watching the red text on the screen. The first crack in his delusion had appeared. By tomorrow, the whole dam would break. The storm had cleared by morning, leaving Chicago buried under 2 feet of pristine white snow. But the chaos in Carter's life was just beginning to thaw. I was already seated in the main boardroom of Omnicorp Logistics, watching the lobby feed on my tablet. Carter walked in through the sliding glass doors at 8:30 sharp, dragging Veronica along with him. He was wearing his best suit, clearly intending to impress her and straighten out the glitch with his corporate card. She looked tired and unimpressed, her fur coat looking out of place in the sterile corporate lobby. Just wait here, babe, I heard him say through the microphone feed. I will get the finance guys to unblock the card in 5 minutes. Probably just a security trigger because I tried to use it at a hotel, but as he walked toward the turnstiles, the atmosphere shifted. Usually, the security guards would nod and wave him through. Today, they stared straight ahead, stone-faced, employees huddled in corners, whispering and glancing at him before quickly looking away. Carter didn't notice the tension. He was too busy trying to look important for his mistress. He tapped his badge against the reader. Beep, beep, beep. A red light flashed. He frowned and tapped it again. Harder. Beep, beep, beep. What is wrong with this thing? Carter muttered, his face reddening. He turned to the receptionist, a young woman he had reduced to tears more than once. Hey, Sarah, open the gate. My badge is acting up again. Sarah didn't even look up from her screen. I am afraid I cannot do that. Mr. Thorne. Access denied. Excuse me. Do you know who I am? I am the senior logistics manager. Open this gate before I have you fired. Veronica crossed her arms, tapping her foot. Carter, this is embarrassing. Can you even get into your own office before he could explode? The elevator doors pinged open. The director of human resources, a stern man named Mr. Henderson, stepped out. He was flanked by two large security officers. Mr. Thorne, Henderson said, his voice carrying across the silent lobby. There is no need to shout. Please come with us to conference room B. We have some updates regarding the company's ownership structure. Ownership structure. What are you talking about? Carter asked, his bravado faltering slightly. I need to speak to finance about my card. That will be addressed. Come. Carter shot a nervous glance at Veronica. It is probably a promotion. Big shakeup. You watch. He followed Henderson up to the glass-walled conference room on the second floor. I was waiting inside. My high-backed leather chair turned toward the window, overlooking the snow-covered city. The entire former board of directors sat around the long mahogany table. Heads bowed in silence. Gentlemen, the acquisition of Omnicorp was finalized at 3 a.m. Henderson announced as Carter entered. We are now a subsidiary of Sterling Vance Global. Vance Carter laughed nervously. That's the big league. So, what does that mean for my bonus? It means a voice cut through the air. My voice that we are trimming the fat. I spun the chair around slowly. Carter froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He blinked rapidly, as if trying to clear a hallucination. He looked at the board, then back at me. I wasn't wearing the flour-stained apron he saw last night. I was wearing a navy blue Armani power suit, my hair slicked back, a diamond brooch worth more than his life's earnings pinned to my lapel. Ellie, he finally choked out. What are you doing here? Did you get a job as a janitor? Get out of that chair before someone sees you. I didn't smile. I didn't yell. I simply picked up a thick manila folder and slid it down the length of the polished table. It stopped inches from his hands. Sit down, Carter. You can't order me around. I am a manager, he shouted, looking at the board members for support. Why aren't you guys saying anything? She's my crazy wife. She's trespassing. She is the chairman of the board, you idiot, the former CEO whispered, his face pale. She owns the building. She owns the company. She owns us. Carter's knees buckled, and he collapsed into the nearest chair. What? Open the folder. I commanded. He opened it with trembling hands. Item 1. I recited, ticking off the points on my fingers. Petty embezzlement. You have been charging personal dinners, golf outings, and hotel stays to the company account for 3 years. Total $42,000. Item 2, misuse of company assets. Item 3, gross violation of the Sterling Vance Code of Ethics. Code of Ethics, he whispered. Conduct unbecoming of a leader, I quoted. Specifically, abandoning dependents in life-threatening weather conditions. We have a zero-tolerance policy for moral bankruptcy. I stood up, leaning over the table, my shadow falling over him. You are fired, Carter, effectively, immediately. And since you used company funds for personal gain, we are freezing your pension and seizing your 401k to recoup the losses. Carter looked toward the glass wall. Veronica was standing there, watching. She had seen the way the CEO bowed to me. She had seen the fear in the room. She looked from me, the billionaire owner, to Carter, the unemployed thief. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She wasn't dating a rising star. She was dating a parasite, and I was the host he had been feeding on. You can't do this, Carter stammered, tears forming in his eyes. I have a reputation. You have 20 minutes to clear your desk, I said, turning my back to him to look out the window again. Security will escort you out. Don't steal any staplers on your way out. Carter, we will be watching. The world moves fast, but the internet moves faster. By the time Carter was escorted out of the Omnicorp building with nothing but a cardboard box and his personal cell phone, His life was already trending on Twitter. The security footage from our front porch, the clip where he threw Leo's toy truck into the snowbank and shoved us out the door, hit TikTok at 9 a.m. By 10 a.m., it had 1 million views. By noon, it was the #1 topic in the country under the hashtag #SnowmageddonDad. I watched the chaos unfold from the safety of the penthouse suite, scrolling through the comments on my tablet. This guy is a monster. Look at the kid crying, one user wrote. Does anyone know who this is? Let's find him, another commented. He's wearing an Omnicorp badge. Internet, do your thing. Carter was sitting in his car in the parking lot, staring at his phone in horror. I could practically feel his panic through the screen. His personal phone, an older model he was forced to use after surrendering the company iPhone, started vibrating incessantly. It wasn't just ringing, it was seizing. Text messages from unknown numbers flooded in, a barrage of hate and threats. I hope you freeze, you piece of trash. How dare you treat a child like that? We know where you live. Beside him in the passenger seat. Veronica's phone was blowing up too, but for a different reason. She was an aspiring Instagram model with a modest following of 10,000 people, mostly bots. But now, her notifications were real, and they were brutal. What is going on? Veronica shrieked, scrolling frantically. Oh my God, Fashion Nova just emailed me. They are canceling my ambassador code and Sephora. They just tagged me in a post saying they don't support home wreckers. Carter, you ruined my brand. Your brand. What about my life? Carter yelled back, his voice cracking. I just lost my job. My pension. Everything. His phone rang again. This time, the caller ID said, Mom. He answered it, putting it on speaker in a desperate attempt to hear a friendly voice. Carter. Have you lost your mind? Beatrice Thorne's shrill voice filled the car. The neighbors are texting me. They saw the video. You threw your wife out in a blizzard. How could you be so stupid to get caught on camera? You are embarrassing the family name. Mom, please, I didn't mean to. Wait, Beatrice interrupted. I just saw the news ticker. They are saying Eleanor is a Vance-like. The Sterling Vance family, the billionaires. Yeah. Mom, Carter groaned, rubbing his temples. She owns the whole company now. There was a pause on the line, followed by a complete shift in tone. Oh, my poor baby. Listen to me. You need to fix this. She is rich. Carter, filthy rich. You are still her husband. Go apologize. Get on your knees if you have to. Think of the alimony. Think of... As Carter hung up, his eyes darting around wildly. He needed to control the narrative. He opened Instagram and started a live stream. Guys, listen, he said into the camera, forcing a pathetic smile. That video, it is taken out of context. Eleanor, she cheated on me. Yeah, she is the one who wanted to leave. I was just... Click. The screen went black. A notification popped up, account suspended. This account has been flagged for violating our community guidelines regarding defamation and false information, reported by Sterling Vance Legal Division. No, Carter slammed the phone against the steering wheel. Meanwhile, across town, I sat on a plush cream sofa in a television studio. The red on-air light blinked on. I looked directly into the camera, poised and elegant, a world away from the shivering woman in the viral video. Today, I am launching the Leo Vance Foundation. I announced, my voice steady and warm. We are dedicating $50 million to providing immediate shelter and legal aid to women and children fleeing domestic abuse. No one should ever have to choose between a toxic home and freezing in the cold. The interviewer nodded solemnly. Thank you, Ms. Vance. Your story is an inspiration. The internet connected the dots instantly. The victim in the video was the heiress. The villain was Carter Thorne. The floodgates opened. Suddenly, LinkedIn became a battlefield. Former colleagues from Omnicorp began posting their own horror stories about Carter. I worked with Carter Thorne for 2 years. He stole my lunch every day and took credit for my quarterly reports. One project manager wrote, "He once fired a pregnant woman because her waddle annoyed him. Glad he got what he deserved." Another posted, "By the time the sun began to set." Carter Thorne wasn't just unemployed and broke. He was the most hated man in America. He sat in his car, isolated, while the entire digital world celebrated his downfall. He turned to Veronica for comfort, but she was busy deleting every photo of him from her profile, frantically trying to scrub the stain of his existence from her life. He was radioactive, and for the first time in his life, he was completely, utterly alone. From the comfort of my penthouse study, I watched the live feed from the hidden camera Alfred's team had planted in their motel room. It was like watching 2 rats trapped in a sinking ship, turning on each other the moment the water started rising. The air in the cramped room at the Starlight Motel was thick with tension. Carter was pacing back and forth on the stained carpet, while Veronica sat on the edge of the lumpy mattress, her arms crossed, staring at the peeling wallpaper with a look of pure regret. "Baby, listen to me," Carter pleaded, his voice cracking with desperation. "Ellie is just playing mind games. She is trying to scare us. She can't just take the house. I signed the papers. That house is still mine. We just need to ride out this storm, and then I will sue her for emotional distress or something." Veronica didn't look up. She was scrolling furiously through her phone, the glow of the screen illuminating her scowl. "Ride it out, Carter. We are in a roadside motel that smells like bleach and desperation. You don't have a job. Your cards are declined. And people online are saying you are going to jail." "It is all lies," Carter shouted, waving his hands. "She is manipulating the narrative. Once I get my lawyer shut up," Veronica snapped. She held up her phone, turning the screen toward him. "Look at this, CNN just confirmed it. Eleanor Vance, sole heiress to the Sterling Vance fortune, estimated net worth $2.3 billion. Billion with a B." The color drained from Carter's face. He slumped against the dresser. He had thrown away a diamond because he thought it was a rock, and now the reality was crushing him. Veronica looked at him, and for the first time, I saw the mask slip completely. There was no affection in her eyes, only calculation and disgust. "You told me she was a nobody. You said she was a boring, poor housewife who dragged you down. But she was the one paying for everything, wasn't she? The car, the dinners, the trips. It was never you." Just then, I nodded to Alfred, who was standing by the computer. "Send it. In the motel room." Veronica's phone pinged with a new message. It was from an anonymous number. She opened it and frowned. It was a screenshot of a text conversation Carter had with his frat buddies just 2 weeks ago. "Veronica. She is just a good time." Carter had written, "A placeholder until I find a real model. She is kind of annoying, but at least she looks good in a skirt. I will dump her once the divorce is finalized." Veronica read the text out loud, her voice trembling with rage. Carter's eyes widened in horror. "No, baby, that is fake. That is photoshopped. I never said that," but Veronica was already done. She stood up and shoved him hard in the chest. "You are a liar. You are a broke, pathetic liar. I caught you texting your ex-girlfriend, Jessica, 10 minutes ago, asking if you could crash on her couch. Do you think I am stupid? I just needed a backup plan." Carter yelled, grabbing her arm. "You are supposed to be on my side." "Get off me," Veronica screamed, wrenching her arm free. "I am not on your side. I am on my side. I only dated you because I thought you were a successful executive. I thought you could help my modeling career. But look at you. You are nothing. You are a loser who kicked his kid out in the snow. I am done." She began throwing her clothes into her bag, not bothering to fold them. Then, with a terrifying switch in demeanor, She pulled out her phone and hit Go Leave on Instagram. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes as she looked into the camera, putting on the performance of a lifetime. "Guys, I am so sorry," she sobbed, holding the phone up to capture Carter cowering in the background. "I had no idea. I was deceived too. Carter Thorne lied to me about everything. He told me his marriage was over years ago. I am a victim here too. I am leaving him right now. Please, don't send me hate. I am just a girl who fell for the wrong guy." She ended the stream, grabbed her bag, and stormed out the door without looking back. Carter was left standing in the silence of the dirty room. He ran to the window, watching Veronica jump into an Uber and speed away. He was completely alone. No wife, no mistress, no money. He reached for his car keys, thinking he could at least sleep in his sports car. But his phone buzzed. It was a notification from the bank. Notice of repossession. Due to default on payments and seizure of assets. Your vehicle has been remotely disabled and locked. Recovery team is en route. He looked out the window just in time to see a tow truck backing up to his beloved car. Then, a final text message arrived. It was from the motel management, a property that, unbeknownst to him, was part of a hospitality group I had acquired hours ago. "Mr. Thorne, your rental agreement has been terminated effective immediately due to violation of occupancy regulations. You have 2 hours to vacate the premises before law enforcement is contacted for trespassing." Carter sank onto the floor, burying his face in his hands. The walls were closing in, and for the first time in his life, there was no one left to bail him out. Carter, shivering in the thin lobby of the Starlight Motel with his few belongings in a trash bag, finally made the call he dreaded most. He called his mother. 30 minutes later, a rusted sedan sputtered into the parking lot. Beatrice and Howard Thorne didn't rush out to hug their son. Instead, Beatrice rolled down the window, her eyes gleaming with greed rather than concern. "Get in, you idiot," she barked. "We saw the news. 2.3 billion. How could you not know? Do you have any idea how much 50% of that is? We are going to be rich. Mom, she kicked me out. She hates me." Carter whined, squeezing into the back seat like a scolded child. "Hate has nothing to do with it," his father, Howard, grunted as he merged onto the highway. "It is the law. You are married. Community property. We are going to that hotel and demanding your share. She can't just hide money like that. It is fraud." They drove straight to the Vance Plaza, storming into the lobby like they owned the place. Beatrice, wearing a faded coat that smelled of mothballs, marched up to the front desk. "I want to see Eleanor Vance." Immediately, she shrieked, slamming her hand on the marble counter. "I am her mother-in-law. She is holding my son's assets hostage. Tell her to get down here before I call the police." The receptionist looked at them with mild amusement and picked up the phone. "Madame Vance is expecting you. Please, take the elevator to the conference room on the 40th floor." Beatrice smirked at Carter. "See, you just have to be firm. She is scared of us." They rode the elevator in silence, Beatrice fixing her hair, preparing to play the matriarch. When the doors opened, they were led into a sleek, glass-walled conference room. I was sitting at the head of the table, flanked by Arthur Blackwood and 2 armed security guards. I didn't stand up. "Well, it is about time," Beatrice huffed, pulling out a chair. "Eleanor, look at you, all dressed up like you are someone important. You think because you have money now you can treat my son like garbage. You lied to us. You committed marriage fraud. Hiding assets is a crime. We want half. Carter is entitled to $1.15 billion, and we want a house in Florida and a new car." I looked at them, my expression unreadable. "Are you done?" "No. I am not done." "You are a disrespectful." I snapped my fingers. The sound was sharp in the quiet room. The security guards stepped forward, their hands resting on their belts. Beatrice shut her mouth instantly. Mr. Blackwood, if you please, I said calmly. Blackwood slid a document across the table. It was yellowed with age. 7 years ago, on the night before your wedding, Mr. Thorne signed this document. He was, I believe, quite intoxicated at the time, celebrating his last night of freedom, as he called it. He thought he was signing an insurance waiver for a bachelor party stunt. Carter squinted at the paper. That is, my signature. But I thought, it is a watertight prenuptial agreement, Blackwood explained, stating that all assets acquired before and during the marriage remain separate. The what is mine, what is yours clause. You get nothing. Not a cent. Beatrice gasped, clutching her chest. You tricked him. That is not fair. Fair. I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Let's talk about fair. Did you know I bought the mortgage on your house last year? Beatrice, the bank was going to foreclose, so I bought the debt through a shell company to keep a roof over your heads. You haven't paid a dime in 6 months. Technically, I own your house too, and I can evict you just as easily as I evicted Carter. Beatrice and Howard shrank back in their chairs, their bluster completely deflated. Carter, realizing the money was gone, desperately switched tactics. He slid out of his chair and dropped to his knees on the plush carpet, tears streaming down his face. Ellie, please, forget the money. I don't care about the money, I just want my family back. I miss Leo. I am his father. You can't keep a father from his son. I made a mistake, but I love that boy. I promise I will change. I picked up a remote and pointed it at the screen on the wall. You love him, really. The video played. It was from the security camera on the porch, audio enhanced. The storm howled, but Carter's voice was crystal clear as he threw Leo's toy into the snow. Get that trash out of my face. I am done with the boredom. I am done with you dragging me down. You and the kid. You need to go. I am sick of this burden. The silence that followed was deafening. Carter stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. There was no spin, no excuse that could cover the naked cruelty of his own voice. Burden. I repeated the word softly. That is what you called him. You don't want a son. Carter, you want a prop to make the jury feel sorry for you. But that video, it is already with the family court judge. Carter slumped on the floor, defeated, as his parents looked at him with pure disdain, not because of what he did, but because he had failed to secure the payout. They were a family of vipers, and I had just pulled their fangs. Here is the deal. Carter, I said, my voice cutting through the silence of the conference room like a scalpel. I slid a thick stack of documents toward him across the polished mahogany table. You sign the divorce papers right now. You waive all rights to Leo. You accept that you get $0 in alimony. In exchange, I will not personally press charges against you for child abandonment or the fraud you committed against my personal accounts. Carter looked at the papers, then up at me. Even now, kneeling on the floor with his life in ruins. The greed in his eyes flickered back to life. He actually licked his lips. Calculating. Okay. I will sign, he stammered, wiping sweat from his brow. But, Ellie, come on. You have billions. You can't just leave me with nothing. How am I supposed to survive? I need a startup grant. Just $500,000. Consider it a severance package. I stared at him in disbelief. The audacity was breathtaking. Before I could answer, the heavy double doors of the conference room burst open. 6 officers from the Chicago Police Department marched in, their badges glinting under the fluorescent lights. Carter Thorne, the lead officer, announced, his voice booming. You are under arrest for grand larceny, corporate embezzlement, and wire fraud. What? No! Carter scrambled backward, knocking over a chair in his panic. Beatrice screamed, a high-pitched, animalistic sound. She lunged across the table, her fingernails aimed at my face. You. Witch. You did this. You set him up. My security detail intercepted her effortlessly. One guard simply stepped in front of me, catching her by the arm and restraining her. She kicked and spat, screaming obscenities until they dragged her out of the room, her voice fading down the hallway as the elevator doors dinged shut. Carter was hyperventilating, his back pressed against the wall as the officers approached with handcuffs. He looked at me with wild, terrified eyes. Ellie, wait, I will sign. Look, I am. Signing it right now. He grabbed a pen from the floor and scribbled his signature on the divorce papers with a shaking hand, nearly tearing the page. There, it is done. Tell them to. Stop. You promised. I walked over slowly and picked up the documents, checking the signature. It was valid. I handed the file to Mr. Blackwood. I promised that I would not prosecute you for your crimes against me, I said, looking down at him with zero sympathy. But Omnicorp Logistics is a public company with other shareholders, and the district attorney tends to frown upon embezzlement regardless of what I say. I can't stop the wheels of justice. Carter, I just greased them. You lied to me, he whispered, the blood draining from his face as the officer grabbed his wrist. Officer, take him away, I commanded. They hauled him up. As they marched him out of the room, he looked small. He looked like exactly what he was, a thief who got caught. Down in the lobby, I knew exactly what awaited him. I had tipped off every major news outlet in Chicago. As Carter was led out of the Vance Plaza in handcuffs, blinding flashes of camera lights erupted. He tried to hide his face, but there was nowhere to hide. Reporters shouted questions about the blizzard and the stolen funds, their voices merging into a roar of condemnation. I also saw a second police cruiser pulling up on the monitor. Veronica was being escorted out of the back of a squad car, weeping hysterically as an officer held up several designer handbags as evidence. Receiving stolen property purchased with embezzled funds was a felony, and she was about to learn that being an accessory to a crime was not a glamorous look. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the penthouse, looking down at the street 65 stories below. The flashing red and blue lights of the police cars looked like toys from this height. I watched them drive away, taking Carter Thorne out of my life forever. I waited for the sadness to hit me, for the grief of a failed marriage to surface. But it never came. Instead, I took a deep breath, and for the first time in 7 years, my lungs filled with air that felt clean. It felt like I had just undergone surgery to remove a malignant tumor, and now, finally, the healing could begin. 6 months had passed since the blizzard that changed the trajectory of my life. I sat in my corner office at the top of the Vance Plaza, looking down at the latest issue of Forbes magazine on my desk. My face was on the cover, looking confident and serene, under the bold headline, The Return of the Queen, How Eleanor Vance Reclaimed Her Empire. I was no longer the invisible housewife begging for grocery money. I was the chairwoman of Sterling Vance, and I had never felt more alive. I looked out the window to the private garden below. Leo was running through the lush green grass, chasing a golden retriever puppy we had named Blizzard. His laughter floated up to me, pure and unburdened. He had stopped asking about his father months ago. The fear that used to shadow his eyes whenever a door slammed was gone, replaced by the security of knowing he was unconditionally loved. Business was thriving. Under my leadership, Omnicorp Logistics had transformed from a toxic boys' club into an industry model for employee welfare. I had fired the entire corrupt board and instituted paid parental leave and fair wages. Profits were up 30%. It turned out that treating people with dignity was actually a sound business strategy. Carter Thorne was learning a very different lesson about consequences. He was currently serving year 1 of a 5-year sentence at a state correctional facility for grand larceny and fraud. My lawyers kept me updated, mostly for their own amusement. Carter had become a celebrity on the cell block, but not in the way he wanted. The other inmates called him the billion-dollar idiot. You had a winning lottery ticket and you set it on fire. His cellmate reportedly mocked him daily. Man, you really are. The stupidest guy in here, his mother, Beatrice, had faced her own reckoning. Without my financial support, she was forced to sell her home to pay off the debts I refused to cover. She was now living in a subsidized 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Neighbors complained that she spent her days sitting on the stoop, bitter and lonely, shouting at anyone who would listen. She was ungrateful I raised a manager, and she just took it all. She would scream at the mailman who had learned to simply walk faster, and Veronica. She got the fame she always wanted, but not as a model. She became a viral meme. A photo of her being arrested with the stolen handbags circulated the internet with the caption, "Bags secured, freedom lost." No agency would touch her. No wealthy man would date her. Last I heard, she was working the drive-thru at a fast food joint, wearing a hairnet and trying to hide her face when customers pulled up. But I did not dwell on them. Tonight was Christmas Eve again. I was hosting a massive gala at the mansion, not for the elite, but for single mothers who had nowhere else to go. The great hall was filled with music, warmth, and the smell of roasting turkey. Amidst the crowd, I met Julian. He was an architect, soft-spoken and kind, with paint on his hands and a warm smile. He did not know who I was when he handed me a napkin I had dropped. He just saw a woman. "You look happy," he had said earlier, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Like someone who has weathered a storm and came out shining. As the party wound down, I found Leo by the window. We stood there together, watching the snow fall gently over the city. It was not scary anymore. It was beautiful. I pulled my son close, feeling the warmth of the fireplace behind us. "Mommy, look at the snow," Leo chirped, pressing his hand against the glass. "I see it, baby," I whispered, resting my chin on his head. "It is beautiful. Thank you for the storm that day. It helped me find myself again. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please leave a comment down below and let's chat. Don't forget to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and smash that hype button so more people can hear this story. See you next time.